On March 23rd, following the assassination of Sheikh Ahmed Yassin, the spiritual leader of Palestinian Islamic group Hamas, one of the top leaders of the same group, named Abdel Aziz Rantisi, was appointed as the new leader of Hamas in the Gaza area. Rantisi is known as one of the strongest hardliners within Hamas. Professor Ikeda, what significance will Rantisi's appointment as leader following the death of Yassin have on Palestine's relationship with Israel?
Well, as you have just mentioned, Abdelaziz Rantisi is known for his uncompromising stance toward Israel and will definitely bring his own radical stance to Hamas. He comes from a family of refugees from Ramle and emerged as the chief spokesman of the organization since 1990s. He has forged connections with Hezbollah leaders of Lebanon and also with some Iranian figures. In the past, overseas Hamas members have been considered to be more militant and radical than their Gaza-based colleagues. Rantisi, however, is no less strident than any of the overseas militants, and the overseas Hamas leaders might find it difficult to challenge their new leader. On the other hand, Rantisi is not considered to be a religious figure, unlike the assassinated Sheikh Ahmed Yassin, and therefore is not capable of issuing religious rulings. For the first time, a movement that calls itself Islamic does not have a religious leader at its helm. Of course, this fact does not mean that the Hamas is lacking an operational command to plan and execute terror attacks or guerrilla warfare against Israel. Its military wing, Izzarin al-Qassam Brigade, has not been damaged, nor has the political Politburo of it been harmed. The attacks against Israel will probably increase in the short run. Hamas might start to target Israeli and Jewish individuals overseas, or it could now begin to target the cabinet ministers who authorized the Yassin assassination. But in the long run, I think the Hamas will face a couple of problems. One is the problem of logistics. For last few months, the organization has been stepping up its effort to conduct attacks from Gaza and possibly has reached the limit of its capabilities. They do not lack volunteers for attacks, suicide or not, but their bottleneck is the engineering of explosives. The other problem is the danger of split between Hamas Gaza, Hamas West Bank, and Hamas overseas in the wake of the assassination of Ahmed Yassin, who managed to keep the movement united. Yassin was a unifying personality in the movement, and without him, the split, if it happens, could be very profound.
With Rantisi's appointment as the new leader of Palestinian Islamic group Hamas, what kind of effects can we expect to see on the relationship between the Yasser Arafat-led government of Palestine and Hamas?
The fact that Rantisi is taking over the Hamas leadership can be interpreted as a statement of defiance against the Palestinian Authority's leadership. Rantisi in the past has made a number of public statements that annoyed Chairman Yasser Arafat of the Palestinian Authority and his associates. And each time dispute flared between Hamas and the Palestinian Authority, the PA. Just recently, there were attempts to rehabilitate the PA security forces in Gaza. It is clear, however, that the assassination of Yassin precludes any possibility the Palestinian government will be able to take any steps to restrain Hamas, which has only seen its prestige enhanced by the assassination of its leader, winning unprecedented sympathy for the movement among Palestinians. The PA, in its turn, is perceived by the residents of Gaza as a pitiful entity, unable to struggle against Israel or to stop the daily killing of Palestinians there. Therefore, the atmosphere created in Gaza does not allow for any talk of Palestinian action against Hamas. Anyone who would now dare to limit the movement of Hamas activists would immediately be considered as accomplices to the Israelis who murdered the Sheikh. In fact, The assassination of Yassin may very well be leading to the collapse of the Ahmed Clear government. The entire idea of electing a Palestinian prime minister was meant to enable the opening of a new, renewed political process. But now, no such process appears possible. You don't need Clay and his government, they say. With or without Rantisi as the new leader of Hamas, the political damage caused by the assassination of Yassin to the Palestinian Authority appears to be really serious.
Following the assassination of Yassin by Israel, a string of criticisms from the international community have been coming one after another. However, on March 23rd, according to the press close to Israeli government security authorities, Israeli Defense Minister Mofaz has decided to target all top members of Palestinian Islamic group Hamas for assassination. It was also mentioned that Prime Minister Ariel Sharon has accepted this objective. Why do we see Israel continuing in its hard stance towards Hamas?
The Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon has been talking about his what is called unilateral disengagement plan for the last few months. Under the plan, Israel is offering to withdraw from the entire Gaza Strip and also evacuate some of the settlements in the West Bank. This is a unilateral move. For such people like Shalom or Shaul Mofaz, his defense minister, it is important that the move will not be interpreted as a sign of weakness. What they fear is that the Palestinians would celebrate it as a victory. And indeed, Hamas did not agree to allow Shalom withdraw. It insisted on expelling him, as demonstrated by a number of suicide attacks in recent weeks. The Israeli message in the assassination or threat to assassinate is to prevent a situation in which Hamas can claim that Israel is withdrawing from the Gaza Strip under pressure from the organization, and therefore it is necessary to continue military actions against it in order to bring Israel to a comprehensive withdrawal from the Gaza Strip and from the West Bank as well. It is meant to prove that Shalom's plan to withdraw from the Gaza Strip is not a reward for terrorism. It should be seen as part of the Israeli counteroffensive before the disengagement.
On March 23rd, U.S. President Bush spoke of the killing of Yassin by Israeli airstrike, saying Israel has the right to protect its country from terrorism, and he avoided criticizing Israel directly. Then, on March 25th, the UN Security Council decided to issue a resolution criticizing Israel for its actions. 11 countries, including France, Russia, and China, support the resolution, but the U.S. used its power of veto to reject it. 3 countries, including England, refrained from voting on the issue. Why did President Bush avoid attacking Israel for taking such violent measures to kill Yassin? What kind of effect can the assassination of Yassin be expected to have on the relationship between the United States and Israel?
Well, I think the American administration perceived that the Yassin assassination was justified, no less so than the American attempt to assassinate, which have yet to succeed, of Osama bin Laden and his cohort would be justified. The Americans have repeatedly claimed that the world is at war, the war against terror. The Israeli attacks against Hamas, therefore, overlap with the American operations against Al-Qaeda. And in fact, a few Al-Qaeda-linked groups published a statement vowing revenge on the United States and its allies over Israel's assassination of the Hamas leader. However, if the Americans believe the assassination was justified, it does not mean they think it was necessary and wise. To say something is permitted does not always mean that it is worthwhile. I think the Bush administration is quite embarrassed by the event because they do not want to see further deterioration of already destabilized situation in the Arab and Islamic world, and also because they do not really believe that the Yassin assassination was an absolute necessity in terms of thwarting terror attacks. As for the American-Israeli relationship, the assassination seems to have very little impact on it. As long as war against terror is concerned, they see themselves in the same boat.
With the Yassin killings, the U.S.-led roadmap for Middle East peace is in danger of falling apart completely. There are also movements within the international community, by the U.S. and the UN, among others, to hold at check the expanding danger of collapsing Palestinian peace. 1 week will have passed since Yassin's assassination by Israeli airstrike. Finally, Professor Ikeda, please share with us your predictions for the future of Palestinian affairs.
Presumably, the Palestinian attacks against Israel will increase. Israel will respond with military actions, and inevitably, many civilians on both sides will be killed. The anarchy in the Gaza Strip will increase, along with the difficulties for the population there. The strength of Hamas in the Palestinian street will increase. These are the direct outcome of the Yassin assassination. For the first time, I recollect, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict has taken on a religious dimension rather than national dimension, since the target chosen by Israel was an Islamic leader whose symbolic statue went far beyond the borders of the country. If the Shalom government was motivated by the desire to deter future terror attacks, the efficacy of the assassination can be very seriously questioned.
Professor Ikeda, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.